Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brennan Quaintance, and today I'm going to be showing you how to set up your Zodiac FX switch. So let's go. So once you receive this bad boy, you are now ready to start setting up your SDN network. So first things first, I highly recommend going and downloading the Zodiac FX user guide. It has a lot of good information about the switch. So let's get started. Here's a simple diagram of some of the components that are on the switch. For my project, I'm going to be showing you, we're going to be using the USB connector and also the erase jumper. So first things first, before we start jumping into configuring and having a bunch of fun, let's update the firmware to the latest one. Now you can go to northboundnetworks.com and their forum section, and they have a lot of good information, a lot of resources on this forum for your Zodiac FX. So I'm going to go ahead and go to General and go to this sticky right here, and we can get the latest firmware, which is right here. So let's go ahead and download that. Once you have that downloaded, we are going to be using a program called SAMBA, if that's how you say it. And you can find the link for this at the bottom of the user guide, which is right here. Let's go ahead and open that, and we are going to download the top one, which is for Windows, depending on what operating system you're using. I'm using Windows. So once we have both the firmware and the latest firmware and the program that we're going to be using for uploading it, let's go ahead and disconnect. Make sure your device is disconnected. And what we're going to do next is we're going to erase what's on it right now. So to do this, let's go back to our diagram. The jumper right here is what we're going to be using, and so it's usually has the jumper plastic piece only on one prong, and so in order to erase it, we're going to go ahead and cover both prongs with the jumper and push it down. So after we have that done, let's go ahead and plug it in to our computer. And just go ahead and wait like 5-10 seconds, and it should be erasing it now. So once that is done, let's go ahead and disconnect it again, and we're going to move the jumper back onto only one prong. So once that's done, let's go ahead and plug it in one more time, and let's go ahead and open up the program that we downloaded. Now it should automatically detect what serial port is being used. Mine is COM11, yours is going to be probably different. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is we're going to select the board that we're using. So the Zodiac FX is the AT91 SAM4E8-EK. And once we have that selected, let's go ahead and connect. Okay, so the next step is to upload the firmware. So let's go ahead and bring our user guide right on the side. And so next we're going to go ahead and send the new firmware. So let's go to Browse, and we shall select the new one. And then also we're going to go ahead and click Send. And when this comes up, you do not want to lock it. So go ahead and select No. Now under the script sections, just make sure it says boot from flash with GPN VM1 selected. It's usually already selected, and go ahead and select execute. All right, we are good to go. So go ahead and disconnect it and plug it back in. All right, once we have uploaded the newest firmware on the switch, let's go ahead and connect to it and start configuring it. Now, in order to connect to this switch, we're going to be needing some type of terminal device or program. I know Mac has built-in terminal and Linux as well, but for Windows, I'm going to be using PuTTY, which is free to download. Just Google it. So we're going to go and select connection type serial, and we have to find our COM serial line, which changed because we just unplugged it and plugged it back in. So a quick way to find your COM port that's being used, go ahead and search device manager, and we're going to just go down to ports, and you can see I'm on COM 10, so we're going to change that to 10 and click connect or open, and then hit enter a couple times, and there you go, we are connected. So this is the basic OS of the switch. Very basic. You can type help for a list of commands, which is very useful. So we have different options we can choose to configure. We also have OpenFlow, where we can see what's going on with the switch, and we can see the flows and the packets that are going through. We also have a debug section that we can do. So the basic things that we need to configure on this switch is we need to give it an IP address, a subnet mask, a gateway, and also the IP of our controller. So I want to introduce a program that is very useful in networking, and if you plan to become a network engineer like myself, I highly recommend that you download this program. It is called ZenMap. It's free on their website. So what this basically does, it scans networks. You can see what IPs are being used, what ports are being opened on hosts, and stuff like that. But I will say be very careful using this tool, and be sure you're authorized to scan a network, because you can get in legal trouble if you go and start scanning everybody's network. So just be careful, make sure you have authority in your company to do so. So just go ahead and start by entering the network that you want to scan, and then after that you can enter in the subnet mask. So this is basically saying I'm gonna scan this entire network 192.168.1.0 to see which hosts are being used by IP addresses and etc. So there's a bunch of different types of scans you can use. These show like all open ports, like I said before, but for this we just want to do a ping scan just to see what IPs are not being used. So go ahead and hit scan. After that, it's going to display the results on the left side about which IPs are being used by the host, so you can figure out what IP range you have to configure your Zodiac FX switch. So let's go ahead and jump into the config, and we're going to type config, and now we're going to set IP address, and so you can basically assign this to whatever IP that you want. I'm going to go ahead and set this IP address as 192.168.1.202. Next, we need to set the subnet mask. So set net mask 255.255.255.0. This depends on your network. And lastly, oh no, we have two more steps. We need to set the gateway of our router. So that is my gateway. And also we need to set the IP of the controller that we're going to send our information to. So set OpenFlow controller. Now we haven't yet set up our controller yet, but I know the IP that I want to assign it, so I'm going to say 192.168.1.200. That's the IP I'm going to give it later in the next video. So go ahead and hit enter. And that's the basic 4 configurations that we're going to need to get this switch up and rolling. So after we have those 4 set, go ahead and let's save this, and we are good. And so one of the problems I run into, or have ran into with this project, is after I saved and set all these IPs, it still had trouble communicating with the network. And how I figured out how to fix that problem is just to do a save and just disconnect it and reconnect it, the power from it. So just keep that in mind when you're having trouble trying to ping the switch or it's just not communicating. And that's pretty much it. Our Zodiac FX switch is ready and up and running. So that is pretty much it. That's all we need to really do to set up the configuration for our Zodiac switch. There's a lot of other commands you can use in the switch, a lot of debugging commands that might be useful later for troubleshooting. You could, from the global config menu or the global menu, you could see show ports, you could see your ports. All of them are down because nothing is plugged into them and running yet. You can go to show flows. We don't really have any flows yet. Oh, that's an open flow menu. You can go show status, give you a little bit of information. We have a firmware version 0.72. That's what we just uploaded to it. It also gives you the temperature and how long the switch has been up for. So it's pretty basic. Like I said in the previous video, the control plane is taken out of the switch basically. So there's not much you can configure in the switch. Those configurations are going to be in the next video or the next couple of videos when we have our controller running and we'll start configuring the switch from there. That about sums up configuring our Zodiac FX switch. Thank you guys for watching.